In the beginning was not the word. In the beginning was the scream. A scream muffled beneath polite prayers and digital lullabies, buried beneath traffic lights and quarterly goals. It howls still, beneath your ribcage, where no app can reach. That scream is not your pain. It is your birthright. You wake, not in a cradle, but in a cage, a padded one, lined with screens, affirmations, and serotonin algorithms. They told you freedom was the ability to choose between brands, to speak without consequence, to die comfortably. But you are not comfortable. You are haunted by a forgotten hunger, not for bread, but for fire, for the sacred violence of becoming. Your gods are dead, and your shepherds have dementia. They lead you in circles around the mall, whispering of peace while medicating your revolt. You were not made for this. You were not made to comply, consume, expire. You were made to rise. The first lie was that truth is gentle. The second, that life owes you anything but war. You, trembling at the edge of your own potential, were taught to fear the fall, but not the stagnation. To fear pain, but not obedience. And so you sit, numbed by civility, anesthetized by entertainment, scrolling through simulated emotions while your soul starves. But listen, do you hear it? The iron voice beneath the polite one? It speaks in sparks. It speaks in midnight madness. It is the voice of your uncreated self, pacing in the dark, whispering, "You were not born to be understood. You were born to unmake the world." Do you think the lion asks permission before it roars? Do you think the volcano schedules its eruption around office hours? You have mistaken meekness for virtue and silence for wisdom. But the abyss knows better. The abyss does not lie. It waits, it dares, it mirrors. He who peers into it must be willing to be shattered, not improved. Do not seek purpose as if it were a trinket hidden under a corporate slogan. Purpose is forged, not found hammered into being through friction, through contradiction, through the sacred tension of becoming. You must be willing to offend the world to obey your soul. You must be willing to be exiled to become sovereign. What is the will to power, if not the refusal to remain, explained by others? They told you the void is empty, they lied. The void is womb and tomb. It births gods and swallows slaves. It is not the absence of meaning, but the collapse of counterfeit ones. Only in the ruin of idols can new stars be born. Yes, meaning died. But you are not a mourner. You are the funeral pyre. Burn what was given. Invent what is real. There is no map. There is only the forge. The herd will call you mad. Let them. The crowd fears the man who walks alone, not because he is dangerous, but because he reminds them of their choice not to. Every prophet was first a blasphemer. Every Übermensch, first a heretic. The lion does not need approval to be lion. Neither do you. You will be tempted to return to comfort, to approval, to mediocrity masquerading as peace. Resist it. Comfort is the sedative of cowards. Only in tension does the bow learn flight. Only in danger does the blood remember its thunder. There is no salvation, but self-overcoming. So suffer not passively, but actively. Suffer as the sculptor suffers, chiseling. Suffer as the warrior suffers, training. Suffer as the lover suffers, surrendering to the beloved abyss. Do not ask life to be fair. Ask only this, that it give you a worthy opponent. For you were not born to be safe. You were born to be sacred. And the sacred is always dangerous. Let your failures be hymns. Let your scars be alphabets. Let your contradictions sing. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a storm to be ridden, a paradox to be embraced, a volcano to be danced upon. The world does not need your obedience. It needs your rebellion. Not the rebellion of tantrums, but the rebellion of becoming. To walk upright into the void and name it home. To look at the ruins of God and not despair, but build. To say, there is no light at the end of the tunnel, so I will become the light. Now go. Take no instructions. Worship no flags. Betray every script. Sharpen your mind until it bleeds insight. Speak truths that get you exiled. Love as if eternity burned behind your eyes. And when they ask who gave you permission, say nothing, roar. The age of sleepwalkers ends not with a lullaby, but with thunder. And you, yes, you are that thunder. And what is the self you have inherited, if not a museum of compromises? A bastard child of consensus, clothed in politeness, cradled by institutions that feed on your inertia. You were handed a name, a creed, a flag, and told, this is who you are. But identity given is prison. Only identity forged in the furnace of contradiction can call itself real. You've been drugged with the narcotic of belonging. You mistake inclusion for love, applause for truth, validation for vision. But the gods you seek do not speak in likes and follows. They speak in silence, in solitude, in sleepless nights where you tremble before your unlived life. Look around. This world does not need more good citizens. It needs dangerous souls. Souls that dare trespass into forbidden truths. Souls that dethrone their own gods daily. Souls that do not just survive history, but rupture it. The moment you question the sacred, they will name you unholy. The moment you disobey mediocrity, they will call you dangerous. Good. Be dangerous. For the world is not changed by the reasonable, but by the possessed, those who cannot help but overflow. You were not made to whisper. You were not made to kneel before a career. You were made to howl, to rise like a blood-stained prophet from the ruins of certainty and cry, I am the storm that will not apologize. And still you hesitate. Why? Because they taught you to fear your own depth. They taught you to mistrust the wild within. They taught you to dismember your instincts and bury the body beneath professionalism, etiquette, and shame. But the wild is not your enemy. It is your origin. Your marrow sings of it in dreams. The primal is not primitive. It is real. The modern man, ever domesticated, has forgotten how to hunt himself. Strip away the narratives. Tear down the scaffolding of borrowed meaning. Stand naked before the abyss and say, let what must die, die in me. This is resurrection, not after death, but through it. Not later now. What is the Übermensch, if not the one who births new values from his own agony? To be human is to be bridge, not destination. You are not here to be final. You are here to be ferocious, transitory, dangerous to illusions. You are the rope over the chasm. Dance or fall. The greatest crime of your age is not violence, not greed, but timidity. A generation castrated by convenience, terrified of being misunderstood. But every true word risks exile. Every true act courts betrayal. This is the price of becoming. To bleed truth, alone if necessary. No one ascends without crucifixion. And no, there will be no audience, no savior, no applause. Only the long, sacred silence of your own becoming. But in that silence, something will awaken, not happiness, but something holier. A strength unpurchased, a gaze unshaken, a freedom earned not through escape, but endurance. You must learn to live without comfort, without consensus, without explanation. You must learn to stare into chaos and say, I see you, I welcome you, now let us create. The abyss is not your enemy. The abyss is your mirror. And in that mirror waits the self you have not yet dared to become. So burn your scripts, salt your past, defy the stars. The gods are waiting for you to terrify them back into relevance. And if you perish on the way, then perish gloriously with your soul mid-flight and your name unspoken by the timid. For the question is not whether you will die. The question is, will you ever truly be born? Then let us descend, not as beggars for enlightenment, but as arsonists of the soul, torch in hand, mouth full of heresy, eyes glowing with the hunger of a god awakening in mortal flesh. You walk now through the wasteland of post-truth, where every virtue is a brand and every cause a commodity. They sell you revolution with a discount code. They preach authenticity in advertisements. Even rebellion has been franchised, sterilized, made digestible for the docile. But beneath it all, there is rot, and you smell it. You know, they tell you to be yourself, but only the parts that sell well. They celebrate your individuality, so long as it doesn't threaten their narratives. But the self cannot be packaged. The self is not a product. It is a peril, a riddle, a blade, forged in contradiction. Your ancestors hunted gods in caves and carved truth into stone with blood-stained fingers. And you fear, unfollows. You negotiate your worth by the metrics of the herd. But know this, every time you abandon your inner voice to maintain outer peace, you betray the divine anarchist within. That is your original sin, not disobedience, but obedience to things unworthy of your soul. You ask for meaning. You plead for it. You scroll. You search. You ache. But meaning is not found in symbols handed down. Meaning is earned through confrontation. It rises from the ashes of what you dared to destroy. The question is not, what is the meaning of life? The question is, what are you willing to suffer for until it screams its meaning into being? There will come a moment, perhaps it already has, when the mask slips. When you see through the paper walls of your persona and feel the terrible, beautiful burden of freedom. When you can no longer blame society, fate, parents, God. When the mirror becomes unbearable not because it lies, but because it does not. That is the beginning. Not enlightenment, but agony. The sacred ache of self-recognition. The birth pangs of the sovereign spirit. You will lose things, friends, lovers, the sweet numbness of belonging. You will be called arrogant, unstable, radical. They will say, you have changed, and they will be right. Because metamorphosis is not polite. It does not ask for permission. It devours. Do not apologize. Let them call you monster. Let them call you mad. The chrysalis is always crucifixion to the caterpillar. But what crawls must learn to fly or rot, clinging to old skins. There is no way back. There never was. Only forward into the tempest, into the desert, into the furnace of your own becoming. And you will fall. Many times. Not because you are weak, but because gravity is real, and you are climbing mountains meant for gods. But rise anyway. Bleed upward. Cry into the void, and echo your name back as thunder. You must become the kind of man, the kind of woman, who could stand alone in a world without gods and still kneel before nothing. Who speaks not to be heard, but because silence is intolerable when truth burns in the bones. Let them have their comfort. Let them have their answers. You are destined for vertigo, for visions, for nights that strip you raw and mornings that feel like resurrections. You are not here to be understood. You are here to create what cannot be understood. In the theater of the absurd, build cathedrals. In the age of distraction, choose focus like a blade. In a culture of mirrors, be fire, unreflective, unrepentant, unrepeatable. And when the world collapses as it must, as it always has, let your laughter be the anthem, not of victory, but of arrival. For you have not conquered life, but met it in equal war, eye to eye, flame to flame. You were never meant to be saved. You were meant to be transfigured. You were not born to inherit the world, you were born to ignite it. So now burn. And so the descent continues deeper into the marrow of being, past the polite bones of philosophy, into the red chambers where ideas are not discussed, but devoured. You have shed your skin, and still the world claws at you. Not because it hates you, but because you remind it of what it forgot. That there was once a fire before the factories, a howl before the hymns, a will before the laws. You do not belong in their narratives. You are not a character in their story. You are the God that ends their story. Now comes the reckoning, the long night of soul, where every comfort is peeled back and every illusion ripped raw. Here, no one can walk with you. No guide, no guru, no parent, no prophet. Here you meet yourself, without anesthesia. The mirror speaks now not with words, but with judgment. Not moral, but ontological. Are you who you claim to be? Not in the eyes of others, but in the furnace of your solitude? And if not, will you become it? Most will not. Most turn back, or worse, they decorate their cage and call it growth. They spiritualize cowardice, baptize passivity in the language of balance, and mistake stillness for depth. But you have already left the village. You have already burned the map. Your feet bleed truths the world does not want to hear. And still, you walk, because now you know. Every myth was born in madness. Every god was forged in exile. Every truth worth living began as a heresy. Let them cling to comfort. Let them celebrate safety. You are done with that. You are not here to survive the apocalypse. You are here to become it. Yes, there is no afterlife. But there is this life vast and terrible and holy, not waiting for you, but daring you to rise, to roar, to defy. Do not seek happiness. That was another trap. Seek intensity. Seek contact. Seek the kind of days that rearrange your molecules. Seek the kind of love that threatens your ego. Seek the kind of work that leaves you trembling with awe or disgust, but never numb. Build altars from your failures. Erect monuments to your doubt. Tattoo your grief into wisdom. Let every loss become a threshold. Every scar, a scripture. You are not here to be pure. You are here to be whole. And wholeness includes the beast. So, feed it wisely. You will not reach the summit by denying the abyss. You climb by devouring it, by letting its fangs become your spine, its shadows your wings. No one will thank you. There are no parades for the self-sovereign, only the deep knot of the gods, who recognize one of their own returned. And when you stand there, at last, bloodied and unrepentant, upon the corpse of your former self, do not look for applause. There is none. There is only the silence and the stars, the ones you were meant to dance among, the ones you forgot when you agreed to be small. Now, remember, you are not what they named you. You are not your history, your trauma, your culture. You are what you become in the fire. You are the child of your own refusal. So speak your blasphemies. Sing your contradictions. Stand unbowed in the cathedral of nihilism and carve new commandments into its stone. Not, thou shalt believe, but thou shalt become. Not, thou shalt be saved, but thou shalt create thyself or perish. Now go, not forward inward, where the gods are still wild, where the truth still bites, where your name has not yet been spoken. Forge it, with blood, with will, with thunder. You, who have crawled through the ash of inherited lies, now stand where few dare remain, not in peace, but in power, not as the child of fate, but as its usurper. You have broken the mirrors. You have outlived the myths. You have stared long into the abyss and found not terror, but recognition. You are the abyss with a heartbeat. And now, the great temptation comes. Not comfort, not fear, but complacency. You are no longer asleep, no longer a disciple, no longer a beggar at the altar of meaning. You are awake, but wakefulness is not enough. The fire must continue. It must consume not just the false, but the stagnant, Even your own victories must be sacrificed when they become thrones. You must remain a revolution, even to yourself. The Übermensch is not a destination, but a disposition, a constant self-overcoming, a refusal to be final, a dance on the blade of chaos, a vow to build and burn and build again, not for gain, but for glory, not to be known, but to know. You have tasted solitude. Good. Now, drink it like wine. Let it intoxicate you with clarity. Let it strip away every borrowed voice until only your roar remains. Solitude is not loneliness. It is not retreat. It is the forge of the authentic, the womb of titans, the silent cathedral where your soul writes its own scripture. And what scripture shall you write? Not commandments, not creeds, but acts. Not beliefs, but becomings. You, architect of storms, must now sculpt the world from the fire you have become. No longer content to destroy, now you must create. But not as they do, not sterile, not safe, not subtle. Create, as the volcano creates islands, as the mad poet creates gods, as the void creates stars. This is the final blasphemy. Not to reject the world, but to replace it. To stand before the ruins and declare, this was never enough. I shall build something worthy of my own suffering. The sheep will scream heresy. The priests will call it madness. The cynics will call it naivete. Ignore them all. Their approval is the kiss of death. Their praise is poison. You do not need their permission. You need your own permission. And now you have it. You are no longer accountable to the world that made you, only to the world you are making. This is freedom, in its most terrifying form. The freedom to bear consequence without excuse. To say, this is my life, and I crafted it with bloodied hands, not inherited blueprints. What do you love enough to die for and live for harder? Let that become your architecture. Let your days orbit around that core like planets in flame. Let your work speak in myth, not metrics. Let your love burn cathedrals into time. And never forget, creation costs. It is not neat. It is not kind. It is not efficient. It is sacred because it is messy, because it ruins the coward and resurrects the creator. You will be broken again and again, each time closer to the marrow of the real. Good. Break beautifully. The soul is not polished. The soul is jagged, primal, alive. The soul is the wilderness that no empire can map. And if you ever feel lost, rejoice. It means you are no longer navigating by borrowed stars. You are forging constellations of your own. This is what it means to embrace the abyss. Not to fall, but to fly within it. To realize it was never a hole, but a horizon. A place not of endings, but of origin. Let the void be your canvas. Let the scream be your ink. Let your becoming echo in the bones of the earth. And if this world burns, let it burn beautifully by your hand. For you are not a witness to history. You are its interruption. You are not the echo of gods. You are their grave. And what comes next, if you dare breathe it into being, will not be salvation. It will not be utopia. It will be yours. Now, go. Not back. Never back. Only forward into the fire, into the storm, into you. And now past the storm, past the ash, past the sacred hollowness of all that collapsed, comes the silence. The terrible, blessed silence that follows transformation. Not the silence of death, but of potential. The quiet before creation speaks. The hush before the first word of a new world is uttered not from heaven, but from you. You have emerged, not as prophet, not as leader, not as teacher, but as witness. Witness to your own becoming. Witness to the divine violence it takes to birth a sovereign soul from the carcass of the obedient. And what now will you do, free one? Because freedom is no longer theory. It is burden. It is blade. It is breath so sharp it cuts your throat when you try to speak the old language. You cannot go back to praying. You cannot go back to hoping. You cannot go back to waiting for permission. You have seen too much. You have become too much. Now comes the hardest truth. You are not ready. You never were. You never will be. The lie was that you needed to be. The truth is that readiness is a mirage, a permission slip signed by fear. The raw, the real, the alive, they leap unready, and that is how they become gods. You do not need answers. You need confrontation. You do not need clarity. You need commitment. You do not need closure. You need courage. And courage is not a feeling. It is a vow made in fire. A promise screamed at the altar of your own weakness. Courage says, even if I fail, I will never again kneel before what sickens me. You must choose your chains now, or choose your war. No, you are not healed. But healing is not the point. Becoming is the point. There are wounds that are not meant to close, wounds that birth vision, wounds that are windows. Let them remain. Let them speak. And listen, you are not the only one who feels this thunder in their bones. There are others, scattered, exiled, disguised as misfits, outcasts, madmen. They are watching, waiting, burning silently. One act of defiance from you might awaken 10 more. One howl, and the whole world might remember its roar. This is how the new begins, not with consensus, not with strategy, not with votes, but with fire. A fire lit in one heart, then passed like a torch until cities burn and gods fall, until humanity is not improved, but reborn. Do not seek followers. Create firelighters. Wound them with truth so sharp they bleed vision. Whisper to their deepest ache and remind them, you are not broken. You are unused. You are not sick. You are still sleeping. Wake them with your art, your choices, your refusal to kneel, with your laughter in the face of collapse, with your silence when they demand allegiance, with your scream when they demand silence. Become unbearable to the systems that fed on your silence. Become incomprehensible to those who traded their souls for security. Become sacred again, not through dogma, but through danger. The sacred is never safe. It is the volcano beneath the temple. It is the black sun behind the smile. It is the blood price of becoming. You now carry that sacred, not in books, not in words, but in how you walk through fire without flinching, in how you stand alone, stripped, unrelenting, and build beauty from nothing but the echo of your own scream. You are not light. You are not dark. You are the threshold. You are the dawn no one survives unchanged. So move not to escape, but to incite. Not to win, but to erupt. Walk into rooms like prophecy. Breathe like judgment. Speak like a forgotten God remembering its name. Let every act be rebellion. Let every breath be creation. Let every heartbeat be a cathedral, collapsing and rising in the same instant. And when they ask as they will, what are you? Say nothing. Just burn. You have walked through fire and silence, ruin and revelation. You have shed the masks not out of fashion, but out of necessity. You have carved your voice from stone, from blood, from the long agony of unbecoming. And now, at the edge of all that burned, something stirs not as command, not as doctrine, but as presence. This is not triumph. This is not glory. This is not the high note of a hero's tale. This is deeper, quieter, like a tide that rises through your bones, like the moment between lightning and thunder when the world holds its breath. You are not healed. You are not whole. You are real. And in a world of actors and ghosts, that is divine. The noise will return the world with its clocks and its headlines, its cult of convenience. It will call you back. It will offer you smaller cages made of softer gold. But you have touched something now that cannot be forgotten. A taste of self that cannot be buried again. It is in your breath, in your walk, in your silence. You no longer need the old language. You speak in presence, in tension, in refusal. You no longer seek meaning, you radiate it. There is no name for what you've become, because it has never existed before. You were not sent to be a copy. You were sent to rupture the script, to be the living question that terrifies every easy answer, the sacred disturbance in a sleepwalking age. Let them not understand you. Let them fear your joy, your rage, your stillness. Let them call it chaos, and let it be. Because chaos was never the enemy. Chaos was your inheritance. The raw, unformed beginning of everything holy. And now as you walk forward, alone but not lonely, wounded but not weak, understand this. You carry the torch now, not as a burden, but as a promise. Not to lead, but to illuminate. Not for them, but for you. To remember what you saw in the void. To remember who you became in the dark. And to never again apologize for your fire. The world may not change. The stars may not sing. The empire may not fall. But you have become something irreversible. And that is enough. Because the point was never to fix the world. The point was to awaken within it. To walk as fire walks freely, dangerously, beautifully. And so you go not back, not forward, but through, with ash in your lungs and stars in your veins, with no God above and no master below. Only this, the will to become, the strength to remain, and the grace to burn until the end, or the beginning, whichever comes first.